Hello and welcome to the Farlands 100 Days Challenge. In this video, I attempt to survive 100 days in the Farlands. The Farlands was a bug with Minecraft terrain that started to generate once you got over 12.5 million blocks in the overworld. This bug was eventually removed, but I'm using a mod that brings it back to Minecraft. And you can find a link to this mod in the description if you'd like to try it yourself. The rules for this challenge are simple. If I take too much damage, I have to start over from the beginning. My goal is to survive in the Farlands for 100 days, and eventually defeat the Ender Dragon. I started the first day by getting as high up in the Farlands as possible, and eventually finding a tree so I could get some wood and craft a pickaxe. With the pickaxe, I was able to mine some stone, craft a furnace, and smelt some iron. I also wanted to get a few more logs, that way I could navigate the terrain more easily. Now that I had enough blocks, my goal was to get a full set of iron gear and tools. And I'm just going to speed up the footage, that way it doesn't bore you. I got a little caught off guard while I was crafting and ran into my first zombie. Thankfully, I didn't take too much damage and I was able to defeat him. After that, I climbed up to the top of the Farlands and mined some extra wood just to be safe. I found a mushroom tree and chopped it down so that way I could make some stew if I found other mushrooms later on. Once I was in a safe location, I placed down some furnaces to cook some food and smelt some iron to complete the armor set. I crafted some shears, that way I could find sheep, get some wool, and craft a bed. I also chopped down a little bit more wood, that way I could have plenty of blocks to travel. Then I would start my long journey to find a village. This would end up taking multiple days and thousands of blocks traveled. On the way, I did stumble across a few structures. The first thing I found was a shipwreck, which had some gold and some iron, along with a buried treasure map, but I didn't think that was going to be very useful. I found a second shipwreck, which had about the same stuff as the first one, along with an ocean ruin which did not have anything useful. In the third and final shipwreck, which just had some ores. While traveling, I took a massive fall, which thankfully I survived. I don't know what I was doing, I just kinda lost focus while I was running. I stumbled across an igloo, which really didn't have anything useful, but I did use the bed to sleep and skip the night. I found a second one, and this time it did have the underground section. Luckily, it had a golden apple, and I also took the brewing stand. I found a ruined portal, which had protection for gold boots, which would be very useful for the nether, along with some obsidian and some golden carrots. And for the second time, I took another fall. I don't know what's wrong with me, but thankfully, I survived and were able to continue this challenge. After days of travel and thousands of blocks explored, I finally found a village. The reason I wanted to find a village was because I could make it my base, and this one also had a lava pool which I could use to enter the nether later on. I used this chest in the village house to clear out my inventory, along with the bundle. After that, it was finally time to start work on a farm. That way I would have plenty of food, and also I could lure some cows and sheep later on. Then I started to build a nether portal. If you've never seen a nether portal built like this before, speedrunners do it all the time. Much better than I could do it. I decided it was probably not a good idea to enter the nether just with iron armor, so this began a 3-day process of getting a full set of diamond armor and tools, which I will just speed up for your viewing convenience. With these first diamonds, I made some tools and a diamond helmet. That way I could be just a little bit more safe. I did stumble across a mine shaft, but it did not really have anything, besides a friendly creeper. I mined the last few diamonds I needed, and some lapis, which I would hope to use later for enchanting. I built up out of the caves and onto the surface, and I had to increase my render distance to find the village. I guess I had gotten pretty far away from it with all the mining. Once I made my way back home, it was finally time to enter the nether. I had my shield ready just in case it was dangerous. I didn't exactly get the spawn that I was looking for. This one was very built in. I did get some quartz just for some levels, and then I started digging down a staircase to find some better terrain. Eventually, it opened up to a nether waste biome, which is one of the more dangerous biomes, so I had to be careful. Thankfully, there was not too many hoglins around. After a bit of exploration, I increased my FOV to hopefully find some kind of structure because I really couldn't see anything. Luckily, I was able to find a bastion. I'm not 100% sure which bastion this was. It definitely wasn't a bridge or a treasure, both of which I was looking for. My goal was to try and target the piglin brutes, but I didn't know that they shared the same aggression. I thought they had like a separate aggression pool or something. Things did get a little bit dangerous, but I was able to tower up to safety, and I was able to bait the brutes to fall off the side of the bastion. And I did the same thing with the second brute. I put myself in a safe position to loot the chests. The first one having a Fortune 2 pickaxe and not much else. The second chest was much better with a Fortune 3 pickaxe and an iron block. I then looted both of the singles chests. One had a gold block and an ancient debris, and the other chest didn't have much. Then I played the triple gold route because it had a few gold blocks, and I only got one piglin, which was very slow, but thankfully this was not a speedrun challenge. While I was waiting for the piglin to trade all the gold, I ran into a ghast and got the return to sender achievement. I didn't really get much out of the trades, only a few pearls and only one fire resistance potion. Then I left the bastion, and after what felt like an eternity, I was able to find a fortress. And thankfully it had a close blaze spawner, which would be very important because I only had 3 minutes of fire resistance. I killed some blazes and got 5 logs, but I eventually ran out of fire resistance and had to leave the spawner. I made this weird wooden blockade and tried to force the blazes to pathfind over to me. It didn't really work that well, and I had to chase the blaze down in the open. Things did get a little dicey because of the skeleton, and with all the blazes shooting at me, but I was able to fully heal and run out of there. I did write down the coordinates of my portal, so I was able to get all the way back and return to the overworld. I spent the next few days working to expand the farm, that way I would have plenty of food. I placed down some water and some dried gas. I've never done this before, so I didn't really know what to expect. Then I took my Fortune 3 pickaxe back to the mines to get some extra diamonds because it did not have enough to make an enchantment table. And then I returned home to make the enchantment table. And luckily this village had a library so that I could get some higher level enchants. I fully enchanted all of my gear, and the best enchant that I got was Protection 2 for my chestplate. And then I spent some time getting some more wood so I could have plenty to build the barn that I wanted. Once I came home, the happy ghasts had spawned, and I was very excited because I've never seen them before. Then it was time to tear down this village house because, sadly for them, that was right where the barn needed to go. I used fire to help burn down the roof, which I thought would speed things up, but I would come to regret this because the happy gas would catch on fire. Thankfully, I was able to get some water, and the happy gas didn't take too much damage. Then I flattened some terrain to make room for the barn. I wanted it to be fairly big so that I could have room for lots of sheep and other animals. After a few days, the barn was mostly complete. Once that was done, I brought over some pigs and some cows that were in the village. And I had to go a little bit further out to find some sheep that I could also bring over to the barn. And then I made a saddle and went to go find a horse, which would be helpful to travel faster. After a while, I found one and eventually tamed him and brought him home. After that, it was time to go back to the Nether because I did not have enough ender pearls to make it to the end. I was looking for either endermen or a bastion to trade for ender pearls. After hours of traveling, I found a warped forest which had plenty of endermen. I thought they were acting a little bit weird and a little bit fast. Maybe that's a quirk of being so far out in the Farlands, or something I've just never noticed before. While I was traveling back home, I found a new bastion. This time it was a treasure bastion, which was exactly what I was looking for. I made my way to the bottom where all the good loot is. It took a while to build around all the mobs safely without getting attacked, but I eventually made it to the center, which had the gold and the loot. I grabbed most of the loot from the chests and gathered all of the golden blocks. And then I left the bastion to make my way back home. Once I made it home, I sheared all the sheep. This would help me get enough wool to make a lot of beds. If you didn't know, you can use beds to deal lots of damage to the Ender Dragon. After that, I realized I had a few days to kill before I would have to defeat the dragon, so I decided to finally make a proper base. This took a lot longer than I expected because I had to build things out of logs, so I had to spend a few days chopping down some extra trees. I also made sure to get a little bit of sand, that way I would have enough glass for the windows. While I was out doing this, my horse decided to take a big fall of his own. Thankfully he did survive and I was able to bring him back to safety. After a few days, the house was almost done, and I think it turned out okay. And at this point, I couldn't really stall much longer, and I had to go to the end. And so I used the Ender Eye and went in that direction. On the way to the stronghold, my horse decided he was not a fan of jumping anymore and took a massive fall. Luckily, I didn't fall all the way to the bottom, or this challenge would have been over. I healed myself and the horse, and we made it back up to the surface. It was finally time to face the dragon, so I made sure that I had everything I needed. I crafted all the beds, threw out some stuff that was not important, and got a few extra building blocks just in case it spawned me far away from the island. Once I entered the end, I made my way to the bedrock fountain and placed an obsidian at the top. That way I could attempt to do a 1 cycle. This is where you use beds to defeat the dragon. After a while of waiting, I got my first perch. Sadly, my timing was off and the dragon switched direction. This means I was no longer doing enough damage to kill the dragon. This also means I would have to sadly wait for another perch to try again. After waiting even longer for the second perch, I finally got one, and I used the same tactic again. But unfortunately, I got the same result. I've never really done this before, and I think that's pretty obvious. At this point, I decided to just shoot all the towers with arrows, that way I could kill the dragon at all. I got my third perch and still tried to use a bed for some reason, but it didn't work. But eventually, I was able to kill the dragon, even if I wasn't very happy with my performance. But I still think I used less beds than Feinberg, so I'll take that as a win. And before I left, I made sure to grab the dragon egg. After I went through the portal and got through the credits, I met up with my horse and made it back to the village. With only a few days left in this challenge, I decided to finish up the house and add a bedroom. And that was it. I survived 100 days in the Farlands. If you like this video, please let me know your feedback in the comments. I had a blast making this video. It was really fun to survive. And if you guys want to see me do another 100 days, please let me know. That's all I have for you. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.